Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you're new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Feathered Friends in High Places. So, for background, the day we moved into this apartment complex, our across-the-hall neighbors started bullying us. Why? We parked in the handicap spot next to the sidewalk to the building. Why? I am handicapped. Turns out one of them liked to park one of his 6 project cars there, illegally, and us using it for its intended purpose was inconvenient to him. So we would get a bunch of nasty letters. Eventually, this escalated to them filing false noise complaints against us. We are a very quiet and introverted couple. We don't interact with people. We always wear headphones and do everything possible to cancel out any noise we make. We prefer to live in a way that most people don't know we are here. Okay, enough background. Our building has a decent-sized crow population. I have always liked them, so I decided to make friends. Spent some time doing research on them and their diets and went out and got some snacks that would be nutritious for them. Every couple of days I would chop up some fruits and veggies and grains and take them out to their favorite tree in a little Tupperware box. I would pick it up later and it would be empty. It got to the point where they would know what days I was coming and gather in the tree. As soon as I started walking over, they would start calling out and more of them would show up. Our neighbors hated the crows. They were really mean to them, screaming, tossing things at them, and in turn, the crows did not like them as well. This came to a head shortly after I witnessed one of them back into our car and then take off at Mach 20. I was visibly frustrated and screaming at them as they drove off. The police didn't care much, so that was a dead end, or so I thought. A few days later, I overheard the neighbors arguing. Apparently one of them wanted to set up cameras because someone was messing with his cars. He thought it was us, claimed that there were small dents, scratches and chips in his windshields. The other neighbor didn't want to deal with it. We were curious, so we kept watch on the windows facing the walkway and parking lot. He did indeed set up small field cams facing both the walkway and his cars. It took a few weeks, but I finally saw what was happening. I would go feed the crows, and then for the days between feedings, these clever little guys would fly over the parking lot high enough to be out of view of the cameras and drop small rocks on our neighbors' cars. My friends were getting back at him for me. They moved a couple of years later. The crows kept it up the whole time while this dude slowly went insane trying to catch the vandals. I don't think they ever figured it out. And I bet many of our ripe stars know that obviously a crow is a man's best friend when it comes to revenge and of course collecting shiny little things. But honestly, I wish there were more crow stories on Reddit, and in case you ever come across one that I haven't read yet, please let me know and send it to me on Reddit or via email. Thank you very much in advance. And the next one is titled The Horrible Downstairs Neighbors and the Shared Boiler, a Saga of Revenge. Let me preface this with my sympathy for downstairs apartment dwellers. I've been there, I know that pain. It is hard having feet above you all the time. My family moved into the upstairs unit of a split-level duplex about 4 years ago. We met with the downstairs neighbors who informed us that they were also moving out in the next couple of months. Things were peaceful, they moved, and for about 3 months we didn't have any neighbors. Then one day the big lock was gone from the neighbor's unit door, a moving van appeared and we had neighbors again. They were an older couple and were very reserved. We tried to be friendly, but they made it pretty apparent right from the start that they were not interested in any more contact than was necessary. That was fine, honestly. I'm not huge on being insta friends with neighbors anyway. I figured we would just leave each other be. Within the first 2 days, the neighbor lady came up complaining about us banging around upstairs. It was strange because we had just been going about our normal business and our son hadn't even been horsing around or anything. We promised to try to be quieter, but not long after she had left, she was back at our door saying, "You're doing it again, you have to stop this." We were not doing anything. We suggested any number of things she could have been hearing, the old plumbing, the building's shared boiler kicking up, but she wouldn't have any of it. A couple of days later, we got a formal noise complaint from our property managers. Things rapidly went downhill from there. We couldn't listen to music at any volume, I couldn't play my guitar ever, we couldn't run our washer, dryer or dishwasher when they were home, which was most of the time, we could barely turn on our faucets, walking had to be cat-like, and God forbid our son laugh, jump or play. Any infraction had the neighbors pounding on their ceilings, the stairwell walls or our door. We quickly learned that the husband was far scarier than his wife. He would actually get in our faces, poking his finger directly in front of my eye and snarling, "I don't have to take this BS from young punks like you." We started reporting incidents to the property manager. At first it was difficult because they had reported first, and every time I called them to try to explain that this was getting ridiculous, they would dismiss me with some kind of platitude about how we had to come to a compromise together. To top it all off, at Christmas the neighbor got a punching bag and set it up in his garage. This would have been fine, except he practiced at 4 in the morning every day and the garage was located directly next to our bedroom. He would hit that thing so hard it would shake the house. We tried to talk to him about it, but he blew us off. He still had the gall to complain about noise all the time too. The final straw was about 6 months into living with them. I remember because the day started with me walking down my hallway to go take a shower and the neighbor started pounding on the floor beneath me, screaming to keep quiet and scared the crap out of me. Later that day, around 6 p.m, our son had a small accident and spilled some food all over himself, so we took the dirty clothes and set them to wash in the washing machine and the neighbor started beating on the door. He was yelling and it sounded and felt like he was throwing his whole weight against it. I actually had a panic attack and took our son to his room while my husband went to face the man. He was shouting about how much noise he had to put up with all the time, and my husband was trying to explain that he was being totally unreasonable. The guy poked my husband hard in the chest and said, "If the management doesn't do something about you, I will." It was only a vague threat, but it was enough to get the managers to take us seriously at least. We filed a police report and managed to get a formal complaint in for once. However, I was still terrified by what had happened. Although the neighbors were older, the man was certainly still strong and the escalation had me so frightened. I felt like there was nothing I could do but wait for him to intimidate us again. But then I hatched a plan. The neighbor would get up early to work out with his punching bag. He would start around 4 a.m. and then I would hear his wife leave the house and go to work at about 4:30. Then at 5 he would stop, shut his garage door, return inside and take a shower and then head to work himself. Our duplex has a shared boiler I mentioned for heat and hot water. It is actually a pretty good size, but it doesn't take too long to exhaust. So I began. The dreadful rumble of the punching bag would begin and I would lie awake waiting for the neighbor lady to leave the house. The second I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I would spring out of bed and run to the bathroom, crank the heat on the tub's faucet as high as it would go and then wait. Once I heard the garage door start to close, I would run back in and turn it off. The first couple of times I didn't hear much, a disgruntled murmur maybe. I was diligent. This guy couldn't stand much irritation, I knew. I just had to be patient. The third day I did this, I heard a loud bang from the downstairs bathroom and him shouting, not at us, just in general, before more banging around, slamming the door and peeling out of the driveway in his truck. I kept it up. Every day I heard his damn punching bag, I would wait eagerly in bed to ruin his post-workout shower. It got to where it was fun. Once I went back into the bathroom to test the water before he stopped his workout and it was ice cold. I actually threw back my head and laughed. It felt good to get him back even though it was really petty. We stopped hearing complaints, the guy slowly reduced his morning workouts, we started seeing plumbers parked in their lot and then we started seeing confused and frightened plumbers hastily leaving while the neighbors screamed at them when they couldn't find anything wrong. We got phone calls from the management asking if we were having issues with our hot water, and my husband had to suppress wild giggles at the look on my face when I said, "No, it's been working fine." Things calmed down, the outbursts tapered off, and one fine day, as spring began to arrive, I saw the neighbors loading their furniture into the back of their truck. I set an alarm specifically to ruin their showers one more time before they left. These damn douchebags. They moved out and we got new neighbors. We haven't had any complaints since and my life has been good. It's been about 3 years and I still get a warm, fuzzy feeling when I recall how I got those pricks back. And guys, I gotta say, that has got to be probably one of the most incredible examples of petty revenge and one of the most clever ones I have seen so far. In addition, if you have watched until here and want to support my channel, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and maybe post some star emojis in the comments. Thank you so much in advance, your help is very much appreciated. And the next one is titled, "Crappy Neighbor Got What She Deserved." So after recently discovering my new favorite subreddit, I decided to share an incident that happened with my neighbor recently. Sorry in advance for the long post. So I live in a 3-story walk-up building with my apartment being on the 2nd floor, and 1 unit above mine there is a mother who lives there with her 2 teenage kids, roughly 17 to 19, and they are loud. Literally all hours of the day and night, all you hear is loud stomping and running around 24/7. Now, I work late nights and usually don't get to sleep until about 4 to 5 AM, and I can sleep through just about anything, but on an almost daily basis I am awakened around 7 AM to doors slamming and them stomping all the way down the stairs. Our building is very old, which is why we can hear everything. Now, me and my roomies are pretty laid-back people, so while the excessive noise is annoying sometimes, it has never been too big of a deal. That is until one day, me and the daughter had our first encounter. A little background info, the way our building is designed, you come through the main door which enters into the foyer that has the mailboxes and the 1st floor unit. Then there is a 2nd door you go through that takes you up the stairs to mine and my upstairs neighbor's unit. Now, like I said before, the building is old, so sometimes the doorknobs on the 2nd door leading up the stairs fall off, so we usually always keep a floor mat tucked under the door frame so the door doesn't shut all the way, because if it does, you cannot open the door from the inside and can only be opened by someone entering the building. This is not a big deal because every unit has a back door that leads to the basement and out to the dumpsters, so it is not like we are completely trapped, it is just annoying having to backtrack. So this one particular day I left my apartment to run an errand and came back around 1 PM. I headed out again around 2:30 and as I was locking my door, the daughter who lived upstairs passed me and was heading downstairs too. When we got downstairs we noticed the door was completely closed. Now, I know it wasn't me and both my roomies were not home, so it obviously had to be one of my neighbors upstairs. Before I can even say anything, this little douchebag tells me I should go to my apartment and out the back door and then come around the side of the building and open the door for her since my apartment was closer and she didn't want to walk all the way to the 3rd floor. Now, had she not been such a cow, I maybe would have even offered her to cut with me through my apartment, but I was not having it. So I responded, "Well, this door was unlocked all day and none of my roommates are home, which means someone in your family locked the door, so you should go around back and unlock the door." She looked taken aback by the response, mumbled something under her breath and then proceeded to stomp her way back up to her apartment. I was just about to head to my apartment because I knew she wouldn't come open the door for me, when ironically my neighbor below me just happened to come home that exact moment and open the door for me. I thanked him as I let the door, accidentally, lock behind me and left. As I turned the corner, I saw the douchebag's daughter coming through the back door and could see the hatred in her eyes as I waved, put my headphones in and went about my merry way. And the next one is titled, "Neighbor Blasted Aerosmith, I Took Her Electricity, Money and Food Away." I lived in an apartment building for a couple years. This building was part of a larger condo association. There are townhomes and some buildings with apartments, all of which you could own. I rented from a landlord. The building I was in had 2 one-bedroom apartments in the front, about 900 square feet, and 2 two-bedroom apartments in the back, about 1,200 square feet. This was repeated for 3 floors, so 12 apartments in total. I had one of the 1 bedrooms on the first floor, where it was me, 23 male at the time, and my dog. The tenants were a mix of older folks and younger professionals like myself. There was one middle-aged alcoholic woman that was the pain in everyone's butt. About a week after I had moved in, it was about 1 AM, and suddenly, over the sound of my own TV, I hear Aerosmith blasting. After a quick process of elimination, I determine it is the drunk upstairs. I walk upstairs and, not wanting to piss anyone off, decide to politely knock on the door and ask her to turn it down. After knocking a couple times, there is no answer. I retreat back to my apartment and throw some headphones in and go to sleep. The next day, upon returning from work, I decide to go knock on the door to see if she is home. She answers and I politely ask her to try to keep the music down after 10 PM Sunday through Thursday. Don't worry about Friday or Saturday because I will be out or hammered and it won't matter. Over the course of the next few weeks, everything goes smoothly. Some other neighbors warn me that it will happen again, and she has been like this since she moved in. I say shame on them for never trying to do anything about it. They say, you will see. Sure enough, a couple nights later, Aerosmith is blasting at 3 AM. I go up and knock on the door. She answers the door, clearly hammered, and calls me a butthole and shuts the door. I go back downstairs and call the cops. The cops arrive, she is rude to them, and they do nothing but give her a warning. They leave and she turns the music back up. They come back and only another warning. This happens a handful of times after this, and I finally accept defeat. The cops cannot or won't help. A few days after this, I hear her in the shower as I take a crap. Her bathroom is right above me. The light bulb goes off in my head and I hurry into the basement, where there is some storage areas for all tenants, and look for a hot water disconnect. I determine my revenge will be turning her hot water off every time I hear her in the shower above. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the hot water disconnect. I do find another treasure hidden in a small area behind one of the storage units that you wouldn't even guess was there. A large breaker panel. I open it up and find breakers for the hallway and staircase lights, etc. But wait, there is a breaker for every individual apartment also. My plan is now set and I walk back smirking to my apartment, waiting. Finally, my day has arrived. I wake up at about 2 AM and I hear Aerosmith. This time it is music to my ears though. I grab a flashlight and hurry downstairs. I find her apartment's breaker and turn it off. I take my victory lap around the basement and walk back up to my apartment. I can hear stomping and screaming, but she cannot figure out why her apartment's electricity is not on, but the lights in the hallway are. I hear her knock on neighbors' doors, but no one has the answer. I smile and go back to sleep. The next day I wake up and go turn her power back on. I was working from home that day, and as I sit at my table and return some emails, I see the electrical service guy arrive. From the bit of conversation I could eavesdrop on, it was clear he had no idea what happened and thought she was a little crazy. After he left, I saw her carry out all the food in her fridge that had gone bad. As months progressed, every so often she would start blasting the music. I would go downstairs, cut her power off and turn it back on hours later. She never picked up on the correlation between her music and losing power somehow. Every time she would call the electrical service guy, I would turn the power back on before he arrived. She would then be charged for the visit and lose money throwing out the contents of her fridge. This worked for 2 years up until about a week before I moved and forgot to turn it back on one day, and there was a lock on the breaker box. And guys, if you would have been in OP's shoes in this story, would you have done the same, or would you have had a better idea than this? I would say this is pretty genius already, and definitely something to keep in mind in case your neighbors are blasting music at strange hours of the day or night. And sadly, Ripe Stars, we have already reached the end of the video. However, as usual, if you cannot get enough of my videos, I would suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up very soon on the left side of the screen. In addition, please don't forget to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more exclusive Reddit content. Mainly, at least at the moment, just no mother-in-law videos. In addition, guys, I would just like to say we are super close to 50,000 subscribers, so I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel. It would be a dream come true to finally reach 50k. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.